Good morning and welcome to Silicon to Soil in Quinta Silvestre. My name is Shayna and you're joining me here in the Douro River Valley in northern Portugal on our farm. Basically what we're doing here is permaculture. That's kind of the very short version. The slightly longer version is that we're doing a permaculture-based project. So the project will include a farm shop and cafe, an open air music venue, places to do courses and workshops and things like that, and a whole bunch more. Woohoo! I like mornings. We just decided to start this channel for a few reasons. It first came to mind because we had a bunch of family and friends and people who had visited the farm asking us where they could see updates or projects or just kind of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So that's where it started. But then as we started thinking about actually doing the channel, we thought it would actually be great to be able to allow people who hadn't ever been here, didn't know who we were, to also see what we're doing here. So either people who just wanted to see it and see we've got a pretty great place here and see what we're doing and how we're progressing, or people who are interested in living a more kind of connected, sustainable life and figuring out how to do that, because we've been figuring out how to do that, or in the future, people who actually would like to come and stay here and actually be part of what we're doing, because we're hoping that there will be more of those as well. So yeah, that's the big picture of what we're doing here and why we decided to start the channel. I think it's kind of cool that you're like starting to see the outlines of the trees and stuff. So a little bit about me. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. My husband grew up outside of Chicago. I have a very diverse academic and professional history. So anything from neuroscience and psychology to computer science to land planning and architecture and kind of everywhere in between. And my husband, same type of thing, from an electrician to a nuclear engineer on a submarine, to computer science and other things, scattered in that as well. Um, but as I imagine, you probably have noticed, none of that had to do with farming, gardening, growing things, kind of this type of project management. It's been a really steep learning curve. I love learning. So it's been really, really fulfilling, I guess is the best way. Really fulfilling for me to have had this experience so far. And there's so much more to learn now that I've learned a bit. I realize how much I don't know. Oh, so many friends now. Hi. Hi, friends. Oh, you guys all gonna sleep in the fire pit? So that's a bit about, I guess, my more professional kind of personal background. Um, a little bit about why we decided to come here. So it started maybe 6 or 7 years ago. We had bought a house in the Silicon Valley, and honestly, it was a beautiful house. It was right next to a river. It was in a nice little neighborhood and all of that. And we loved it. And Joel and I thought that was going to be our forever house. Um, and we had put a bunch of love into it, kind of fixed it up and everything because it needed a bit of help. And I remember one time after we were basically done with everything, kind of when we had gotten things like exactly how we wanted them to be, I was out in the front yard and I remember thinking like, wow, like, is this really where I want to raise a family? Like, will this be good for our kids? Because also the backyard was pretty small. So it was like we had a front yard right on a busy street and a backyard that was quite small. And I was picturing kids, like frolicking in the grass and things like that, which is hard when you don't have very much grass. I still remember the look on Joel's face when I came to him and was like, so is this really where you want to raise a family? Because we were like very much in the middle of kind of planning a family and things like that. I actually might have been pregnant at the time. And I remember him just looking at me like, you've got to be kidding me. like we found this place. We've done all the fixing up, like everything's in order. But anyway, so that actually like brought us down some really interesting kind of thought lines, because we hadn't really thought before that specifically about like how we did want to raise a family and what type of space we wanted to be in, what type of community we wanted. Like we had thought about all the basics, right? Like we want to be in a generally good community that's safe and, that has, decent schools and stuff like that. But we hadn't thought about a lot of the details. And so we started doing that. And we had the realization that what we were looking for probably wasn't going to be found where we were. We were really hoping to not raise our kids in a very consumer-focused place. Also, just the amount of time we were able to spend with our kids, because there was a lot of commute time and also a lot of money stress. So like working more, and anyway, just all of the things together made us realize that where we were probably wasn't going to be the place. We hadn't quite figured out exactly what we were going to do. And then we had a weekend with a close friend of ours, and he had just actually visited the Douro Valley. And he actually was just like, hey, like, I know you guys are looking to go somewhere else. Have you guys ever thought about moving out of the country? And Joel and I looked at each other kind of like, no, like for whatever reason, it hadn't even really been on our radar. And so we came here when I was, I think, 6.5 months pregnant or something like that with our second child. And we had only been here for maybe 3 days or something. We had already met wonderful people, seen a very small part of the beautiful country. And just like the feel here was lovely, right? Like we just really enjoyed the community, we enjoyed the people, we enjoyed the pace of life and all those things. And we were in a very beautiful Airbnb overlooking a valley on this balcony one night, drinking delicious wine, eating delicious food, and just being really relaxed. And I remember looking to Joel and being like, so what do you think? Could you do this? And him, like, he thought about it for a minute. He's like, yeah, I could definitely do this. And so 3 days into our trip, we had already decided that, Portugal was it. And we got to, spend the rest of the time, I don't know, being tourists, I guess. We probably should have actually like looked into houses and stuff like that, but we weren't quite there yet. So anyway, we got back from our trip and started looking for houses. I understand that sounds strange that we didn't actually look for houses while in Portugal. We got back from our trip and looked for houses, but that is how it turned out. Because it was also our vacation as well. So there was that. Anyway, so we found a place actually outside of Amarante, which is not where we are now. And we tried to buy a little farm there, and it just kind of didn't work out. Everything, anyway, that's a different story, but it didn't work out. But we had met a lovely real estate agent in the process, And a couple days later, after the deal fell through with the other place, she sent us pictures of our farm now. And I mean, we looked through like the first like 3 pictures, and we were like, "What? Like this is amazing," you know? And we just kept looking through, and we responded back to her that day, and we're like, "Yes, we definitely want the place. How do we move forward?" You know? So basically what ended up happening is we bought this place. We bought this place after seeing photos and a lovely video, lovely video made by our real estate agent, where she essentially like held her phone out the window and drove to our quinta from not too far away. And now we're here. Like I said before, we've been here for about 5 years, doing all sorts of infrastructure work, basically fixing it up. So we've been doing a lot of work on that and just starting to make that transition to permaculture. So I gave you a bit of a brief overview about what we want to do here on the farm. Thanks to a lovely friend, actually couple friend of ours, I specifically had the realization that pretty much everything we have so many ideas and projects and things going on here, but she was able to help me realize that everything that I want to do here, that we want to do here, is has to do with connection and reconnection. So in all sorts of different aspects or facets. So one, and possibly the most obvious, though right now you can't actually see the nature behind me, but it's there and it's beautiful, is our connection to nature. Before we came here, I loved hiking. I grew up camping, all of those things. So I definitely had a connection to nature, but it was a very different, it wasn't like a daily thing. And, when I was going hiking, a lot of times it was like, oh, hey, let's get out and get some exercise and enjoy some greenery. But it wasn't kind of intentionally to go be in nature. When we moved here, we wanted to have more space, but even then, it wasn't specifically like, hey, we want to have more nature around us. And it was only after being here and realizing how it affects our well-being that I realized the importance of that connection and being able to really have a daily interaction with, for me, green stuff. So that's one. So the connection to nature. Kind of hand in hand with that is a connection to our food, how it's grown, how it's produced, how it's preserved, how it's made, like into food, that we eat, and things like that. I think in a lot of places right now, and where I grew up, it was the grocery store. It turned into the farmer's market, which was kind of one step closer, but it wasn't this like direct connection with our food. So that's another thing that we're focusing on here is being able to kind of reconnect to that, have our kids reconnect to that, and have that a daily thing. Another thing is connecting to other people, and I mean being able to actually like have space to ask people real questions, have real conversations, really get to know other people and listen to what they have to say, even if the perspectives are very different than yours. And being able to have that interaction and that safe space to be able to talk to somebody, be like, wow, that is not at all how I see it, but it not being an issue, just being able to like kind of intellectually have that conversation and see where other people are coming from. I think that's incredibly important, and I think it's something that is not as common as it should be. So connecting with other people as well, uh, along the same lines, connecting with ourselves. I think it's really easy these days. I say these days, it makes me sound like my grandma or something. But anyway, it's really easy these days to be so caught up in life and all of the stressors and rushing and all of that, that you don't actually have time to really evaluate who you are, what you want, where you want to be, all of those things. And not saying that we can always make that happen, right? You know, for us, I know that I'm very, very lucky to have been able to pick up our lives, come to another country, kind of start over in a lot of ways. And I know that that's not something that's available to everybody. But I think even just knowing what we would want is really powerful, because I think you can start taking small steps to be a bit closer to how you want to live, if you know how you want to live. But yeah, so anyway, connection with nature, connection to our food, where it comes from, connection to other people, connection to ourselves. And then kind of as a subcategory of connection to ourselves is connection to our creative selves. But when I say creative self, I mean actually like creating things. I don't necessarily mean that you're, you know, a fantastic painter or artist of any sort, you know, like traditional sort. I mean actually like creating things with our hands. So that could be anywhere from, you know, a painting, great, to a birdhouse, you know, that you make, or I'm trying to think some. We made raised beds, you know, like those types of things. Like when I say creating, I mean in the more kind of fundamental way of like creating things. And I think it gives us a lot. It helps us physically, obviously, we're moving our bodies and everything, but I think mentally it allows us to problem solve. It allows us to use our hands, which I think is very calming and kind of healing. And I say healing, I mean like kind of emotionally. It's like very, for me anyway, it's very good for like stress relief. But also you get that kind of pride at the end of it when you've created something that you're proud of, or even that you're not particularly proud of. And you have this thing that you made on your own, you know? And I think that's also really important. So yeah, and you know, really those are just kind of the first things that I came up with for reconnection. There are many more that I've thought of since then. Because, for example, one of the things that we're getting into right now is making our own clothing and knowing where the fabric comes from, and things like that. So I think, which is kind of a creative thing, but it's also kind of like the food of just like knowing the history of what is in your house and what you're using on a daily basis. So yeah, so basically everything that we want to do here, everything that we have in our project, Margot's saying hi. Everything we have in our project is connected in some way to reconnection. So what you can expect from the channel, from Silken Soil, is essentially following us around and what we're doing on Quinta Silvestre, which I didn't mention it before, but we have about 22 hectares, which is somewhere between like 55 and 60 acres. So basically, just what happens in our week. We'd like to have a weekly episode that shows you the projects we've been doing, even things like the food that we've been making, what we've been harvesting, just kind of everything that's been going on. And also, we'd like to, on occasion, put things that are more in depth, right? So, for example, I make kombucha and milk and water kefir and sourdough and all sorts of things like that. Um, and so we're gonna put in some videos that have, it's like tutorial kind of, just exactly like what I do, how I do it, and if you guys want to do it as well, enough information for you guys to do it and feel confident about it as well. Also, some other things, possibly like recipes, or we're going to be doing some experimentation with growing mushrooms, and anyway, all sorts of stuff like that. So basically, the weekly episodes, but with kind of extra content when we want to go more in depth on something. Um, so yeah, I think that's probably enough information for the first episode. I have so much more to share with you guys, but you know that'll have to come in future episodes, so we don't have like a 40-hour long first episode. Yeah, I mean, I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys follow along. If you know people who might enjoy seeing what we're doing here, please share. And if you guys ever have questions or want more information about any particular thing that we are doing in the videos, let us know. Send us a message, and we'll make it a priority to put out a more in-depth video about whatever it is. Anyway, that's all for now. Bye from Quinta Silvestre, and hope to see you guys again soon.